All right, what's up, everybody? Steve Coffey here again. I'm with my boy Sean Harris, a former teammate of mine. We played together in Spain, but he's going to tell you a little bit more about that. So, thanks for being here and just take a minute to introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up, your background, where you played in college, and your professional career.
All right, thanks, Steve. Hot coffee. Uh, so I grew up in Sacramento, California. Yeah, I played basketball basically my whole life since I was a kid. I have three older brothers, so we were always playing basketball in our backyard or playing anywhere, and they were always beating me because they were always way bigger than me. So I kind of just wanted to keep playing, especially watching my oldest brother play, and then I played in high school. And then I went to junior college, which is kind of like an intermediary college in the United States. It's a 2 year, right before NCAA. And then I got a scholarship after that to go to Utah State. So I ended up playing at Utah State. But it's interesting is I tore my ACL twice when I was in college, back-to-back times. And so my college career kind of ended without playing too much. And I just want to keep playing a little bit more. So I went to a little tryout and got an agent because I was playing good. And then I went to play in Colombia first in South America. Then I went to Europe and I played in Estonia. I was there for just a little bit. Then crossed over to Finland. Played basically that whole season in Finland. Then I went to Portugal, the top league in Portugal. I was playing out there, and then finished up in Spain with Steve. So Steve kind of took the basketball life out of me. No, I'm just, I'm just playing.
Yeah, for you to say that your brothers beat up on you something because you're what 6'8", 6'7".
Yep, 6'7". Play, right now 230. So my brothers ended up being a lot smaller than me, but they were a lot bigger than me when I was growing up.
All right. Talk about some of your experiences, overseas. Just what your favorite place was out of those four countries. I know personally, I have countries I enjoy playing in more than others based on things like maybe climate, food, culture. Which ones did you enjoy the most out of those?
Yeah, so I mean, so I speak Spanish. I went on a mission for my church when I was 19, and so Colombia was the first place I went, and then also I finished up in Spain, which both places they speak Spanish. So that was actually a lot of fun being able to use my Spanish again. But for me, most people are pretty surprised, but Finland actually was to me the best place that I played at, the best country. The people always say like they're super cold, they don't want to talk to you, but everyone asks, "Hey, how are you doing? Hope you feel welcome. Do you like it here?" And just in the league that I was playing in with my teammates, my coach, even the upper management of the team, the GM, the owner. I got along with everyone in the organization, and they treated me like gold. So I think that's a big thing too. Is as a player when you're going to a certain country that's foreign, and you're playing, you want to feel like you want to feel appreciated. You want to feel like you're part of the team, you're part of the family, and that was the place that I felt most at home and most like I was part of the family, even though it was cold out there. But it was a lot of fun, and I love the sauna life. They taught me how to use the saunas, and it was awesome out there.
All right. Um, what was the biggest difference, between all these countries? South America, then you're going up to Finland and Estonia where it's freezing cold and probably much different culture. And then you're going down to Portugal and, we were in the Virgin Islands together off the coast of Africa, three completely different parts of the world, three different cultures. Talk about those a little bit.
Yeah, I think so being in Colombia, I mean that's just South America, Latin America vibes. It was awesome. I really like Latin America and had a great time being able to travel all over Colombia. Going to Medellin where Pablo Escobar did his thing, which wasn't that great, but and then going up to other cities as well, and just seeing the culture, how people lived, how they danced, how they spoke was awesome. And then the fans, how they treated the game as well. The fans are rowdy, bringing horns to the games, banging on bells and different things like that. So it was a ton of fun playing in Colombia. the fans are a little bit more reserved in Finland. There'd be some times where, a referee would call a bad call and I would have to turn to our fans and get them pumped up and start telling them to boo the referee. And people didn't want to do that, so they're a little bit nicer people or, in Finland. And, but there's a whole different type of culture out there where it seemed like, every month there was a holiday. And with every holiday, they had some type of treat associated with that holiday. And so I remember, and the words in Finnish are about a mile long. And they, so every time there would be a holiday, one of my friends would invite me over to his grandma's house and they'd have treats and they'd tell me the name of the treats. And then they'd be drinking some gluggy, which was this Christmas drink that they would drink in Finland. And so it was a lot of fun, being able to be a part of, that type of culture as well. And then going to Portugal and Spain, the Canary Islands, I felt when I was in the Canary Islands, I felt like I was back in Latin America. And I was, I was telling people that too. It was like, man, I feel like, this doesn't feel like Europe to me. But Portugal felt, the difference in Portugal was we would have practice at 10 o'clock at night and we'd finish at midnight every day. And after the practice, that's one of the reasons I left Portugal. That was just our team, but other teams would practice earlier. But when we were done practicing at midnight, we go to the shower, change, and then we would go to, there'd be a couple of us there's 3 Americans and we had a guy from Montenegro on our team as well. And so we would go to eat dinner after practice at a restaurant. And so the restaurant, we would get there about 12:30, 12:15, 12:20 or 12:30 after we had showered and changed and everything and drove to the restaurant. And we'd be eating in there till, 1 or 1:15 sometimes. And this was during the weekdays. No, nothing special, just during the weekday. And this is the type of culture that they have in Portugal where the people would just stay up till 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning. And we'd have, the ladies that were in there, the cooks that were in there, they were probably in their 50s or 60s or even 70s. And they're in there cooking on a weekday at 1 in the morning, like it's nothing, and it's just, and there's people coming in, people coming out. And so definitely more of that Mediterranean lifestyle in Portugal and Spain where people stay up later. There's more of a siesta type of feel, but definitely a lot of fun to be able to see how each country works and how each culture makes it work for them, and they all have their own fun ways and their fun words and different things that they do to make it fun.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite things. Every country I went to was seeing something new about it. When we played in the Virgin Islands together, the culture there was a lot different than what I'd experienced in other countries. Living, next to the water was something I'd never done before. And that was pretty cool to wake up every morning and look out the window. We saw the beach there and got our workouts in and stuff. Yeah, I understand the culture.
I didn't even mention that. Just being we were 10-minute walk from the beach and, on Gran Canaria. So that was awesome.
Yeah. Talk about your recovery. 2 ACL injuries, that's brutal. I can't imagine, not just the physical pain, but the emotional aspect of having to deal with that once and then doing it again. How you were able to push through that, overcome that, and still, make your dreams a reality of playing professional basketball.
Yeah, I think, so when I was in junior college, my second year, I tore my ACL on Christmas Eve. Or on New Year's Eve, sorry. And I tore my ACL, and then I had surgery the next month. And I'd already signed to go to Utah State. So it was kind of a tough call already, letting them know, like, hey, I'm not going to miss all the summer workouts. Probably with 8 months of rehab, I'll be back for the first practice of the school year. And but that was okay, and it was tough, but in my mind, I was like, I'm just going to get through this. There's been players who've torn their ACLs. It was about the same time that Derrick Rose tore his ACL. So it kind of felt like, oh, there's someone else who's doing it with me. And but obviously hadn't seen the rest of Derrick Rose's career at that time. But then I got to Utah State, and I'm just rehabbing, the whole summer. And we get ready for school to start in August. And the first day of workouts, we just do pickup. Coach Morrow was my head coach, and Stu Morrow, and he called rat ball. Because he hated it. It wasn't as organized as just pickup. And so we were playing pickup, and I tore my ACL again. First day back. First day I was cleared by the doctors. And I knew that I messed it up a little bit, but I just wasn't sure how bad. And so I got the MRI, and they're like, yeah, it's you're gonna have to have reconstructive surgery again. And that was like just a big. Same knee.
Oh man.
Yeah. So the first time I did it was with a cadaver graft, which was, from a graft from a dead body, which I don't think that was the right thing to do. I think I should have done from my own tissue. I didn't know any better though. We had a surgeon out in Sacramento who was doing it for their AAA baseball team, the River Cats, the Sacramento River Cats. And I figured out, he's a pretty good surgeon. He's doing it for a baseball team. And I think he was kind of experimenting a little bit at the time, which sucks, but that's just how life goes. And so I ended up tearing it again. When I was up at Utah State, they did a patellar graft, which was my own tissue, right out of your kneecap, that tendon, and they take about a third of it right down the middle, and then they use that as your ACL ligament, and it turns into a ligament that connects your bone to bone. So, but when I found out that, I was gonna have to go through that whole process again, I wanted to cry. I didn't cry because I was in front of other people, but I wanted to cry a lot because I knew I was gonna miss the season that I just basically missed the whole season. I was about to miss another season, and it was just gonna be a lot of monotonous moving your knee up and down, doing a bunch of ice and stem. And so I just knew I just went through it and I did not want to go through it again. But, the coach came to me and he said, next year we're just going to recruit over you because we just don't know what how you can hold up. And we don't think you're going to be as athletic and all this other stuff. Or you can take you can become a manager, take a full ride scholarship, which was awesome of him to do, but I just felt like, I was like, this is not when I was a kid and I would go play, we would go play, there's a gym or a set of gyms, like a 24-hour fitness in California that are called California Family Fitness. We call it Cal Fit is what we call it. So Cal Fit, I would go there. They built one in my town when I was like 11 years old. You had to be 12 to play with the adults. But I was a little bit taller than everybody growing up. So I started playing with the adults when I was 11, right when it opened up. And I remember I would go to the gym and everyone would tell me their sob stories about, oh, I would have played in college, but my high school coach, he didn't know what he was doing, or I would have played, here, but I hurt my shoulder, or I blew out my knee. And so like when I was 11 years old, this is 11-year-old Sean, I made up my mind that I was never going to quit playing basketball because of A, a coach, or B, an injury. And so I always said, I'm going to finish playing, or I'm going to play however I play, and it's going to be on my terms. And that was when I was 11 or 12 years old, because everybody came in saying, oh, my coach made it so I couldn't do this, or I blew out my knee, or I blew out my shoulder, and you know how that goes, and so that's what everyone would come in and say. And I didn't know anyone personally that played in college or played professionally. So I never met anyone who didn't, from the other side, who just didn't make an excuse. But I just kind of made that up myself, that I was like, I'm going to make no excuses. I'm going to see what I can do, because I thought back then that I was like, okay, I think, I had no idea what I was capable of when I was 11. But I just thought like, hey, this is a lot of fun and I want to keep playing. So when my coach came and said, hey, we can give you, this scholarship, to basically be a manager, I turned it down, and they took me off scholarship that next year. And so I rehabbed through that whole year. And the next year I came back and I was playing, but I was not on scholarship. And so just had to pay my own way. But luckily I was already a resident in Utah, where I went to college. And so I played that year, but I just sat the bench. Well, then after that year, we had an okay season. A lot of guys that were supposed to come back. I think there was 4 or 5 guys that were supposed to come back that were on scholarship, all left. And so there was a need for scholarships, and or need for players, I should say, and there was open scholarships. So I went in. This is an interesting story, and Stu Moore will never know this unless he ever listens to this. I had been talking to one Division II school at this time, and no one had offered me a scholarship. And I go into, so we get to the point where in the summer where they thought that I wanted to leave too. And I had just got my year back from my first torn ACL in junior college. So I got a year back, and so I have one more year of eligibility left. And they thought that I wanted to leave too, just because so many other guys had left. But I was like, look, I love Logan, Utah. I love Utah State, love the Aggies. I like being there. I like the students on campus. There's just so many good things about it. It's a great college town. It's just a wonderful place to be. And so I was like, look, I'm like, if there's a scholarship for me here, I was talking to one of the assistant coaches. I was like, if there's a scholarship for me here, like, I'll be here. He was like, well, let me talk, because they needed bigs. They didn't have any bigs. I mean, and obviously it's easier to get guards than bigs just because there's less people that are tall in the world. So it's, that are somewhat athletic. And so, so they needed another big. And and at that time, because everyone else left, I was going to be the only senior that was going to play, that was even going to be on the team. So they were going to have 0 seniors. And so I think that was enticing to them too, was being able to have a senior on the team. So so the assistant coach, his name's Coach Jones, really good guy, sets me up with Coach Morrow. And I go meet in his office the next day, right? And we're talking, and Coach Morrow's like, hey, if you stay here, I can see you playing, 18. Mind you, I played like 0. I played like probably a total of 15 minutes the whole season before, because they just buried me in the bench because I tore 2 ACLs. And so, I didn't even get a shot, but I probably didn't even deserve one because I was injured so much. And so he said, I see you playing, coming off the bench, playing 18 minutes a game, and so I was like, okay, awesome. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to need a scholarship if I'm going to be playing 18 minutes a game, because there's 13 scholarships in college. And there's some guys that sit the bench that are on scholarship. So I'm like, if there's guys sitting the bench on scholarship and you see me playing 18 minutes a game, I should be on scholarship too. And I could tell he didn't want to. So then I'm like, well, I'm talking to a lot of these D2 schools, and I'm not talking one school, and they had not offered me. And just the opposite, they had told me that they ran out of scholarships. So I was like, I'm talking to all these D2 schools right now. A lot of these schools are offering me scholarships. So I was like, it just wouldn't make sense if I had a chance to get school for free and then came here and then had to pay my own way. And he was like, I can have your word that you'll sign here if we can find a scholarship for you. I said yes. And I was like, I can have your word that you'll have a scholarship here. And I was like, I'll stop talking to all other schools, which I wasn't talking to. And but if I'm gonna be playing 18 minutes a game, I should be on a scholarship.
You got to find a way to make your value worth it, because you don't play for free. That's like you going overseas later on and a team calling you and say, hey, we want you to come play overseas and we're not gonna give you any money. Like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Exactly. And so, even when I went to Spain, right? Because I came home for a little bit. We can get to that story if we want to, but I came home for a little bit, and Pablo reached out to me from Maramajo, and I negotiated that whole contract myself, and they wanted to come in with a number, and I was like, look, this is the lowest. I told them, like, this number is the lowest number I'm gonna come in for. Otherwise, I'm just gonna stay home, And they're like, okay, we can make it happen.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of it too, you know, is just being able to negotiate, to understand and know your wealth as a player, to understand like what other guys are getting paid, what you should be getting paid, what, you know, what scholarships, what level you're at to receive money, not doubting yourself, and just keep pushing forward. And, you know, and especially in today's game, you know, I'd say like, if you're going to be playing, it's funny. My brother told me this. He said, you need to be taking one more shot than your coach will allow you to take per game. He's like, that's how many shots you should be taking, because, you know, the guys who get paid the most are the guys who score, you know, more than anything. That people look at scoring the most, you know, even, you know, you can be a great defender, you can be great, all this stuff. But if you want to secure yourself, you know, the guys who score and figure out how to get the ball in the basket are the guys who get paid the most, because those are I mean, that's what happens in basketball. Who puts the ball in the basket and who doesn't?
Okay. I never knew that about you. That's hilarious. But
Yeah.
props to you for doing what you got to do. I mean,
Yeah.
coach is trying to take advantage of you, so you got to stand up for yourself. You know, as a man and as a player, he's trying to get the most out of you for the least amount, you know, possible. So, yeah, I mean, you got your scholarship. You finished out your career. You had several years of playing overseas. You overcame 2 ACL injuries. I mean, that's quite the story for most people. I can't imagine, you know, coming back from 2 injuries like that. That's something. So,
Yeah. And it's funny because when I was done playing that last year, so I actually had 2 senior nights, because my first senior night was, you know, I didn't have a year back yet. So I had a senior night the year before, and then the next year after I got my year back, then I had another senior night. So it was kind of
you
cool.
walked out on the floor twice for senior night.
Yes, I did. I had two senior nights, and I have 2 big old plaques with my jersey in it and everything.
Wow,
And,
that's
yeah,
awesome. So you
yeah,
had 2 jerseys hanging back at home.
yeah. They're somewhere. I don't even know where they are. They're somewhere, either home or I don't even know where they are. They're somewhere around here.
Oh, that's funny though.
But yeah, and it was funny too, because that Stu Morrill, he had coached at Utah State for 17 years. He coached at Colorado for, you know, another probably 10 years or so. And so in the middle of that season, he came out and told us that he was going to retire from coaching that year. So that was his last year of coaching, and he'd taken Utah State to multiple NCAA tournaments. He'd been a really good coach up at Utah State. So my senior night was also his quote unquote senior night as well. And he had somewhat of a farewell tour as we go around the Mountain West, as we go play at UNLV, or we go to Nevada and play, or Wyoming, or wherever it was, San Diego State. You know, coaches would hand them certain gifts or different things like that. And so that was pretty cool to see as well on his, you know, kind of his little farewell tour. And it was my farewell tour too.
Okay, yeah, definitely. What are some memorable like moments on court for you? You know, obviously winning championships is the goal. Maybe, you know, getting personal honors, MVPs or All Stars or something like that. So talk about some of your favorite, you know, on court moments you've had throughout the years.
Yeah, man, there's been a lot of moments. I think, you know, one of my best moments, which is a very small, and not even the highlight, the year that I had torn my ACL at Utah State and I came back and I played like 15 minutes that year. Well, I started that senior night game because we had 5 seniors, and it ended up being that all 5 of the seniors, one was a point guard, one was a shooting guard, one was a 3 guard, one was me at the 4, and then we had a center. So it worked out perfectly. And so our backup 4-man got injured the game before. So I started, and the other guys were already starters. And so we were a little bit older of a team, and this was, you know, I hadn't played meaningful minutes the whole season. I hadn't played in a game during time that mattered the whole season, and I hadn't even scored a basket all season because they wouldn't even put me in. That I just literally rode the bench that whole year, and so I got into that game, and I came in and I scored 2 buckets, just boom, right away. Both assists from the 2 guard and one from the 3 guard, who are some of my closest friends to this day, Preston Medlin and then Spencer Butterfield. And so, got assists from them. And, I still talk to those guys every day. And so it was really fun to be able to go through 2 years of, surgery, rehab every day, another surgery, rehab of, I was literally in the training room 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, every single day that year. And just doing just whatever I could do, working on my knee, working on the muscles, working on my hamstring, my quad, my calf, everything in my leg, and I would get little injuries. I get soreness in my Achilles. I get soreness throughout all that leg, getting ice, stem, massages, everything possible. And, and our trainer, her name was Lori Olson. She did a great job, and she was with me every step of the way. And so I think for me, coming into that game, and I hadn't played all year, and then scoring 2 buckets, right away was amazing. And another thing that happened that game was in college basketball in the United States, we normally have media timeouts in Division I. And so it's every 4 minutes after so you start at 20. After the 16-minute mark, there's a media timeout. So on a dead ball, whatever it is, a foul, ball goes out of bounds, free throw, anything, there's a media timeout every 4 minutes. And we'd practice those 4-minute sessions with Stu Morrow. He would, it's like, hey, we want to make a run. Let's make a run during this 4-minute session. We practice those in practice. And then in the game, it's like during a media timeout, hey, let's take this up. Let's get up, 4 points in this 4-minute session or something like that. So kind of just like compartmentalizing the game. And so, well, this game I started, and they probably had a sub for me after about probably at the 16-minute mark. Well, there's no dead ball. There's no dead ball. It goes from the 16-minute mark. We go to the 12-minute mark, still no dead ball. And I'm in there playing. I'm gassed right now because I haven't played all year. Like, I've just been practicing, and like I'm in decent shape, but not in game shape. And so what happened was I ended up trying to foul a guy because I was so tired. Well, it got to about 10 minutes. It may have even got under 10 minutes. And there's still – the whole game, there hadn't been a dead ball. Been no foul calls, no out of bounds, nothing. Just going back and forth, track meet. And then finally Stu Morrow calls a timeout. And I played half the first half, and it was awesome. It was awesome. And so I think that was a lot of fun to be able to come in, score, play half the first half, and then he actually put me back in the second half. And so, I think that was, to me, because, in senior night, you don't really need to put a guy in the second half. You let him play the first. But to me, that was kind of like, hey, you know what? You actually do have what it takes to play. We're going to put you in the second half and reward you for how you played in the first half. So that was definitely, something I'll remember forever. But that was so, yeah, sorry.
You put it so much, you did a second senior night the following year.
Yeah, exactly.
All over again.
Yeah, I had another one the next year. Exactly. But there's been a lot of good things. Playoffs have been awesome overseas. Being in the playoffs overseas has been great. There's nothing like being in the playoffs. I was in the playoffs in Finland, and I remember one of those games I got 20 rebounds in a playoff game in Finland, and that was I'm just like, man, I was clearing the glass. Tip dunks and different things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think there's just different awards that are really cool to get. I got forward of the year for our league in Finland and made first team all imports out there. So, there's things like that you just don't forget, that you go, anytime you may question yourself or your worth as a basketball player, your confidence, you can always go back to certain things and hang your hat and go, no, like I really am this good of a basketball player. I really can do this. Like, I've done it before. And so I think those things help me out too. Even in other things in life, being confident with who I am beyond basketball, to know that, I can do the right things off the court as a human being. I can make the right decisions, and I can consistently do those things as well. So, a lot of things from basketball transfer over to life, and that's been a lot of fun too.
Okay. I guess that's a good way to ask the next question. Is just what is some advice you would give the people? So many kids out, every country in the world have this dream of playing professional basketball, being able to wake up and their job is go to the gym and get shots up and lift weights and watch film and all these other things. You've given so much good stuff already, whether it's coming back from injuries or whatever. So, what's some advice you could give to people?
I would say, as a basketball player growing up, you need to have fun. Number one, like that's one of the reasons you're playing. If you're not having fun, if it doesn't matter to you, if you don't enjoy doing it, either they figure out why it would matter to you, or maybe find something else to do. There's so many people who love the game of basketball. I love the game of basketball. I still am involved in it in some shape or form or way, in my life today, almost on a daily basis, whether I'm watching or playing or doing something or coaching, any of that. And so I would say, first of all, just develop that love for the game of basketball, which isn't hard, like basketball is such a fun game. Create friends along the way. Just like you and me have been able to create a friendship. Some friendships, are lifelong friendships that you have in basketball, and other friendships are just for that season, and that's fine, And so I think being able to create friends who also have a love for the game, talk about the game, that's important. And then once it's time to get serious about it, definitely take the game seriously too, right? Like there's times to have fun, but winning is the most fun in basketball. When you can win consistently, when you figured out how to play the game. There's a lot of people who think they know how to play basketball, and they do a lot of one-on-one. They do the whole James Harden thing, and they think that they're him, but they haven't figured out how to play the game and how to win. And so I think that when it's time to get serious, it's good to watch high-level basketball. It's good to watch teams that know how to play, teams like the Raptors, teams like the Warriors. Those are the teams that really play basketball the right way. The old Spurs used to always play it the right way. And I loved watching the Spurs, and everyone thought they were boring. And it was my dream to get drafted by Greg Popovich or by the Kings, because I'm from Sacramento. But if it wasn't by the Kings, it was by Greg Popovich, right? And to be able to play with the Spurs and play the Spur way, because they just played such good basketball. And the game keeps evolving. So being able to be on the forefront of that evolution of basketball and how that happens, I think is also, some of my advice. Don't get stuck doing something and playing a way that, is 5 years old. Like continue to evolve your game, continue to get better at shooting, continue to get better at playing defense, fast-paced defense, continue to get better in better shape. And that's the way the game is going, is to better shooting, to better skills, to people who are in good shape, who can run, can jump pretty well. Like it's always been about the running and the jumping, but then the skills now has been something, skills and IQ are just, so people don't realize how much IQ makes a difference. And you look at a guy like Luka Doncic, right? Like he doesn't have the quickest of feet, and he's not, the highest jumper. He is big, right? Like that's what he does have for him, is that he's pretty big. But his skill set, being able to handle the ball, being able to shoot. Now he does need to get more consistent from three, but who doesn't? And just his IQ of making decisions, who to pass it, how to play the defense. Those are the things that I look at as a basketball player. That like when I play in the pro-ams in the summertime, we play with a team with a lot of the Utah State guys that I've mentioned, and we just play the right way because a lot of us played in Europe. We got guys who've played overseas, played in Europe, played professionally, and we just know how to play basketball. At this point, we have very high IQ. We cut, we shoot, we do all those little things, and we move the ball around. And we play a bunch of guys that are currently in college or they're overseas but haven't figured out how to play yet. the right way. And we just go out and kill teams a lot of times because they just don't know yet how to play. So I think that, that's what we see. When we see a guy or a team full of guys who are very talented, but a lot of times we know we can go out and beat them because they don't understand how to play the fluid game of basketball, which is an art, and so we can tell right away, they don't really know how to play, or we can tell, they actually do know how to play. They're like, this is going to be a good team, So I think that's my advice that I would give is continually learn, but also have fun along the way.
Yeah, one thing I tell kids, a lot of times is find what you're good at and get better at that. Everybody has a role to play. You said in Finland you had 20 rebounds. Me as a guard, I'm never gonna have a 20 rebound game. Maybe once in my career I'll get lucky because the ball bounces towards me a couple of times or whatever, but that's not who I am. I'm a point guard and a shooter. That's what I want to be better at, and that's how I want to keep working on. So finding that niche that's going to make you successful and understanding this is what I can do, this is how I can help my team, and not try and do things that are outside of it. And once you understand how each piece fits, like you said, it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to be a part of and play. And now, like you said, you can beat anybody. When I was in college, we played in the Philly Pro-Am, and we played a team. Everybody was in their 30s and 40s. Me, I was 18, 19 at the time, and all our teammates were this young college team. We were ranked second in the country one of my sophomore year. Really good. We went out and played this team and lost by 50 because they just knew how to play the right way. And I walked off the court with this feeling like, how's this possible? I mean, these people are, parents working 8 to 5, doing everything else, and they just made us look horrible. And our coach, was laughing. He's like, the reason why I want you to play this is to understand how to play basketball. These guys play the right way. They don't do anything special. They can't run up and down. There's probably, they're only exercise for the weekend because they got mowed the lawn when they get home and take care of their kids and whatever. But just understanding how to play, and they all did what they knew how to do. They all knew how to do what they were good at and nothing more, and he made them successful. So definitely enjoyed that.
That's our team. We're those older guys that go out there, guys who got kids and, wives, and are just going out there and just dominating. But that's part of understanding, right? Like there's certain things that you just won't know when you're 19, and when you get to be 25, then you really understand the game better, and you understand like, okay, this is how you win. And you even see guys like LeBron, or Michael Jordan. Took them a while to figure out how to win, and it just comes along naturally.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Sean. Always good to catch up. Miss our times playing together in Spain. We had some very fun moments out there.
Coach should have played us more, right?
It's always hindsight's 50-50 or 20-20, but yeah. But we had a good time. Definitely made some great memories. Years later, still get to talk to you and see how you're doing. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure. Pleasure's mine.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.